Do you ever feel like your house is just a disaster? Me too, or at least I used to feel that way. You guys, my house used to be a hot mess. I spent the last 8 years learning how to keep my home tidy and in order, and that process has literally changed my life. So with that in mind, here are the lessons I've learned in my 8-year journey to a tidier home. So for me, this all began with a catalyst. I got pregnant with my first child. She's about to be 8, so this would have been 8 pushing 9 years ago. And as my pregnancy progressed, I realized that I was not happy with the state of my home. Sometimes my floor would be covered in stuff, my counters would have stuff in them, my nightstands would have stuff in them. After we bought a home, much to my husband's frustration, I kind of took over some of the upstairs closets and just made them a disaster. They were so full of random just-in-case things. I had a closet that was just full of boxes in case I needed to ship something, which I was pretty much never doing. My house was just nuts, and it seemed like all this stuff had purpose, but the only thing it was actually doing was making my home unmanageable. So partway through my first pregnancy, that really hit me hard. Like this stuff has to go. My nesting, whereas a lot of people make a nursery, my nesting took the form of getting crud out of my house. And so even though this often isn't what's recommended, a lot of people say to start small in a junk drawer or even to start in areas of your home that are most visible. Thank goodness, instead of getting obsessed with where to start, I just started. And the place that struck me as obviously disastrous, even though most of my home was, honestly, was those upstairs closets. So I tackled my upstairs closets. I got them in order. I got stuff cleaned out. I got comfortable with throwing things away. I didn't need dozens of boxes to ship with. I didn't need old craft and art supplies. There was so much in that house that I didn't need. So I got that in order. I got my upstairs guest room in order, which had at one point been a complete disaster, basically a storage room. It had gotten cleaned out prior, but I worked on it more during my pregnancy. And I just really started learning the value of letting things go. Our house was not perfect at this point. It was still cluttered, but that first round made things so much better and really set out this path, this multi-year path of coming to a place where my home became comfortable. So I think one of the important lessons from that section of my decluttering journey is just start. Sometimes you'll have an event, like this catalyzing event, like a pregnancy or a move where you go, something has to be done here. But you don't need to wait for that. You might wait years for that, or maybe it never comes. Instead, just start. Make some kind of progress. And as you see the progress, you'll become more motivated. Experts in motivation talk about how we don't get motivated and then do the thing. We start the thing and then we see results and we get motivated. And that definitely worked that way for me. I mean, my initial beginning in this process came from that big event, my baby. But obviously, after that, I still needed to stay motivated to keep making progress. And it was extremely motivating to just see that we had a happier, more functional home, even in the beginning, when things certainly had not been completely sorted out. I also kept a list, not like of individual items, but basically of tally marks, showing me how many things I had gotten rid of. I didn't do this all the time, but when I needed a boost, I did. Because when I was looking at a thing and I was like, ooh, maybe I need this thing that I completely didn't need, I could trade that for the little motivation hit of putting a mark on my list of things that I was getting rid of. That list would get to be dozens, hundreds of items long. I got to see that progress of being like, oh, let 100 things go this week. Isn't that great? My house is 100 things better. So that really helped me, and it might help you too. You don't have to make something perfect overnight to appreciate that it's getting better. Eventually, I started reading about and learning more about decluttering. I read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, as so many of us did. And even though that is not a perfect book, it does have some good tips in it. It has some stuff I didn't do, but it has some stuff that's helpful. I listened to Dana K. White's podcast, A Slob Comes Clean, like obsessively, especially during a time in our life when we had done a temporary move into kind of an older rental that wasn't functioning well for our family. I just couldn't quite get that home as clean or as in order as I want it to be during the time that we were there. And I just loved listening to her podcast because it helped me feel like I wasn't alone in this whole thing. Like, other people have had messy houses. And even though I had decluttered enormous amounts by that point, just immersing yourself in hearing or reading about what other people are doing can give you some good tips, but it also just helps you feel like it's not just you, because everybody's working on something, or they need to be working on something. You're working on this thing with your house. Somebody else might be working on a completely different point of improvement, but none of us are perfect. And if your home is what you're working on, if you're working on making it calmer and more functional, then good for you. You're making progress. And it can just be good to hear both tips and encouragement from other people who have gone through something like that. I also learned that this doesn't have to be done all at once. I think that is sometimes popularized, that you're going to do some big purge and your house is going to be in order. We've been cleaning out our house for 8, almost 9 years, even over the course of 2 different moves. And I find that our house gets tidier and more comfortable all the time, because my husband and I have both just gotten better at letting things go and in considering what comes into the house in the first place. So we decluttered through multiple rounds. The first round when I was pregnant with my daughter initially. Later, we did a kitchen renovation that kind of moved around parts of the house and made our laundry area less cluttered. We cleared out closets. We cleared out a garage. We moved and sold or donated enormous amounts of items. And if I had tried to take that on as a weekend or a week or even maybe a summer project, there's no way I could have accomplished it. It would have become extremely frustrating. And you have to build your skills. The first time you look at something, you might not let it go. You might not let it go the second time or the third time, but eventually as you make these rounds through your house and you just make decluttering and tidying up a habit, you'll get better and better at letting things go. Even if at one point they felt like maybe I need this thing, you'll start to have a much better sense of that. I still need to work on some things like really paring down my kids' baby clothes, but every time I look at them, I'm able to get rid of more and more. It's okay to see this as a process, and you don't have to have a house that's perfect. My kitchen and my living room are pretty much always reasonably tidy. My master bathroom, not always, because it's in the back of the house and it's kind of the last place I get to during the day. And while I do want to work on that, it's okay. My house is calm and comfortable now. And you'll get to a place where things are better and better, and eventually maybe you'll have some tweaks to make, but things will be good enough and your home will be a comfortable place to be. I also think that working on something over time and learning about it over time leaves you in a position to where you have a better grasp on what you're doing, and sometimes you can even help other people. So my daughter she's little, she's 7, but she's messy just like I was. And I feel like this whole process has led me to be able to go, you know what, she might just not be a super naturally organized person, and that's okay. Let's give her some tools on how to deal with this. But as they get older and can learn more, I've been able to pass on more skills that help keep my house in order now, which is such a blessing to us, and also will help her as she goes out into the world as a person. I want my kids to kind of be able to sort through things and let things go and not let their house become the stress point that it was for me. So that's been one of the blessings from this, is that I've been able to learn over the years and hopefully pass on some of that information, or at least some inspiration, to my little people and hopefully to you guys as well. So now here we are 9 years on, and my house is no longer a hot mess. I can open my door to guests pretty much whenever I want to. I can relax in my living room at night. I don't feel like I have to spend my weekend clearing up a disaster of a home only to have it re-disaster pretty much immediately afterwards. My journey to a more minimalist and calm and simple home has been one of the most rewarding things that I've accomplished in the past several years. And that might sound silly, but it's true. It's an actual life changer for myself and my family. So I would encourage you to keep going. If there's something you know you need to work on it. Be okay with it being a process, and just start and keep going. If you have any tips that might help somebody else out on their journey to make their home a more calm and comfortable place, please leave them below and watch this video next.